We're taking you behind the scenes to share with you how we recently designed and delivered a workshop for lead generation and the results we got on this episode of the Speaking Your Brand podcast. More and more women are making an impact by starting businesses, running for office, and speaking up for what matters. With my background as a TV political analyst, entrepreneur, and speaker, I interview and coach purpose-driven women to shape their brands, grow their companies, and become recognized as influencers in their field. This is Speaking Your Brand, your place to learn how to persuasively communicate your message to your audience. Hi, and welcome to the Speaking Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Carol Cox, joined today by our lead speaking coach, Diane Diaz. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Carol.
Today, we are talking about how you can design and deliver workshops that get you leads and clients. We're going to share with you how we recently created a 90-minute in-person workshop that we delivered here in Orlando, Florida, where we live at the end of August for a group of women professionals and entrepreneurs. And the entire idea behind us doing this in-person workshop was for visibility and exposure so that more people knew about Speaking Your Brand and the work that we do. And because we knew we were doing this for visibility and for lead generation, there were very specific things that we did that we wanted to make sure that we got an ROI from it. And that's the same thing that we want for you. We know that many of you love delivering workshops. You're out there in your community or at conferences giving presentations. And we also want to make sure that you're getting leads. But Diane, how often do we hear from women we talk to, whether it's on consult calls or clients in our Thought Leader Academy? And what do they say to us? They don't want to sound salesy in their workshops and their presentations. And where do you think that's coming from?
Well, that's coming from having sat through workshops and presentations where the person was salesy, because we've all been to those and it feels icky and gross, and nobody wants to be sold to, right? It feels weird and uncomfortable.
Exactly. And so we don't want you out there delivering an icky sales pitch either, because you're not going to enjoy that and your audience is not going to enjoy that. And it's really not going to be productive for you anyways. But there are very specific things that you can do to make sure that you are getting an ROI from these workshops and your presentations that you're doing. Because after all, if you're spending time and your energy and effort and your expertise to deliver them, we want to make sure that you're getting something back. So we're going to take you through how we decided on the topic for this workshop, considering who the audience was, how we then very specifically chose the offer that we were going to present to them based on who the audience was, how we created the content, designed the content, and how we made the workshop very interactive, as well as one very specific thing we did at the end of the workshop that most people don't think about doing, but it is a game changer for getting leads and clients from these workshops and presentations that you're doing. We're also going to share with you the mistake that we almost made, and it was such a dumb moment when we realized it, and we're going to share that with you because we don't want you to make that mistake either. If you would like to work with us to develop your thought leadership, create your signature talk, which you could also use as a workshop, as well as learn the business of speaking, we do all of those things with you in our Thought Leader Academy. We work with you closely, both one-on-one and in a small group. You can get all of the details and join us at speakingyourbrand.com/academy. All right, Diane. So let's talk about this workshop that we delivered at the end of August. It was for a group called ATHENA NextGen, which is a program that I went through back in 2016. And every year they bring together 50 women professionals in the Orlando community. And it's an 8-month-long program, and we meet every single month in the program, and then they have different topics that they deliver. So it's great not only for leadership development, but also for networking within the community. So because I had gone through the program, I knew that the audience were really mostly professional women, so early to mid-career, not so much entrepreneurs. So we primarily work with entrepreneurs. That has been most of our clientele, but these were women who worked for other companies. So we knew, number one, when we thought about the topic, that it was going to be about personal branding. So Diane, can you tell us a little bit about kind of this idea of creating a standout personal brand and how we thought that it would be a great topic that would appeal to both professionals and entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So obviously for entrepreneurs, when you're building a business that's yours, you need to have a personal brand that stands out, distinctive, clear, because it's so connected to your company, to your business brand. Now, for professional women, who work for a company that they don't own, having a personal brand still important. So we wanted to make sure that those women understood that, yes, you need to you're building something with the company, you're out there promoting the company you work for, but you also have thought leadership. You also have a message, you also have a brand, and you should build that alongside what you're building with the company, because at the end of the day, that's all that you own. So if you end up leaving a company, that is yours, right? And so you should still have a presence, and your voice should come through even in the work that you do at a company.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. So there were about 50 women in attendance. That was the max, and 50 women for the space that we were at that could hold. So it was full house, and it was a lot of fun. The first 30 minutes as women started arriving was their networking time. It was breakfast. So this was early in the morning, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And so we designed a personal brand bingo card with the help of ChatGPT and Canva, and it was beautiful. So we printed that out on cardstock, and when the women arrived, they grabbed one of the bingo cards, and it was a great icebreaker. They would go around and find other women there who met one of the criteria on the bingo card related to personal branding. Things like the person has been a panelist at a conference, or has a podcast, or has been featured in the media, has a active LinkedIn profile, things like that. So it was a great way to break the ice and to get them talking to each other. Because I don't know about you, Diane, but as introverts, showing up at an event, especially during the quote unquote networking time, is for me the most nerve-wracking, because you want to talk to people, but you also kind of like, you feel like, okay, what am I going to ask them? But having that bingo card, I love that as an attendee.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard, I think, especially when there might be women in the groups of women who all know each other, but then one or two people come who maybe don't know that many people, or the person they know is not there. And they do feel a little bit kind of on the outside. So having that bingo card lets them feel more comfortable in because now you have a reason to go up to somebody and ask them, hey, do you have a podcast? And then you just start talking. I love that idea.
And as the ones facilitating the workshop, so if you are the workshop facilitator, make sure you are also mingling with women when they arrive. Like, obviously get there earlier to do all your setup, make sure everything is good to go, so that whatever the start time is for the people arriving, you are ready to start interacting with them, because you want to make sure they feel welcome, that they have a good experience. And if you see a woman by herself, that look where, they're kind of looking around and they don't really know who to go up to. You as the workshop facilitator, the speaker, or the event organizer, go up to them and introduce yourself and get to know them a little bit. They will be so grateful.
Oh, yes. I've been that person. So we will be grateful. Yes.
So the topic was about creating a standout personal brand. They had that 30 minutes of networking with the bingo card. And then after that was the 90 minutes for the workshop. And we really wanted the women to understand not only why building a personal brand was important, especially if they work for a company, but also how to think about what makes them unique, their mission, their values, the work that they do, why the work that they do matters to them, and how they can kind of tie together all the different threads in their career. I feel like nowadays, so many of us, we don't just have one industry we've worked in or one type of career we've maybe majored in something in college and didn't end up doing that for our career. And we've had different jobs. And so a lot of times people don't know how to tie it all together. It feels really messy. So we wanted to help them understand how to connect all of that. We really wanted to make it fun and energetic, have different activities for them to do. And so here's the mistake that we almost made. We put together all these different content ideas. We had these different activities and our frameworks that we use on other workshops that we've given, like our brand voice canvas and our personal brand pillars, and thinking about the different spokes of your personal brand. And then we had this really fun brand personality thing for them to figure out. So we had all these activities. And I remember I was going to work on the slide deck. This is a couple of weeks beforehand. I was like, something feels really off. Like, these are great activities. Like, our frameworks are great, but I don't know, something is just not gelling. It's not coherent. And then I realized, because we hadn't put it into our signature talk framework. And that's why we teach the women our framework in the Thought Leader Academy. When we're working with them on the VIP day, we do that work for them, but then they're also learning it. Because any presentation you do, any workshop that you design, this framework helps you to make sure you're taking the audience on a journey and not just giving them a whole bunch of activities back to back where there's no bigger picture or connecting thread to it. And that's what we wanted to make sure that we avoided. And luckily I figured that out as soon as I was working on that slide deck, because that's where, as a workshop facilitator or a speaker, you get stuck in that expert trap that we talk about, which is just you're giving your audience a bunch of information and activities, which in and of themselves are valuable. It's good content, it's good activities. But if there's not a bigger lesson about that transformation you want your audience to go through by understanding this information, by doing these activities, they're just going to do a bunch of them and then walk away and not really know, well, what did that all mean? What does that mean for me? So that's why we want to make sure that you're thinking about putting this through the Signature Talk Canvas framework. And that we did a whole episode on this back a couple years ago, and I'll put a link to the show notes on walking you through the framework. So let's talk about thinking about how to we had all these activities. And so what I ended up doing was putting them under 3 key lessons that we wanted the audience to take with them. And so we kind of put the activities underneath these 3 key lessons. So if you think about your own content, think about that through line of your topic. What are kind of the bigger picture lessons that you want the audience to take? Put your content and activities underneath those, say, 3 key lessons. And then make sure you're also having unique frameworks that you're having your audience work on, like some of the ones that we just mentioned that we have, because it's going to help you to set yourself apart so that you're not just doing the same kind of work that they've seen from other people. They're doing something different. So Diane, I know that when in the workshop, we had them do the brand voice canvas and the personal brand pillars, which is something we created, is we invented it. And so I know you've done a lot of personal brand workshops, not just you facilitating it, but attending it, or have learned a lot about personal branding over the years. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of why having your own unique frameworks when you're presenting content is so helpful to the audience, but also helpful for them to then want to work with you?
Yeah. So I have attended many, many things about personal branding. And I can tell you from that experience that I don't really remember anything about any of those. And so one thing that I think the framework, having your unique framework and incorporating that into your workshop and using it with the attendees, is that it's more memorable. It's more memorable for them, and it helps them to sort of encapsulate the information you're sharing with them into a little container that's easy to remember, easy to digest, easy to work with. And it makes it more enjoyable, frankly, right? When we put it in sort of that little framework like that. So definitely create frameworks that you can use. I think it also just threads everything together more effectively. So it's not just this content dump, because if someone just comes and tells you a bunch of stuff about personal branding, okay, great. But now I can't take that and then go do anything with it because I'm probably only going to remember a fraction of it. But if you give me a framework and now I've done an exercise and I've written some things down, okay, now I'm thinking about how all the pieces fall together. It's like a puzzle, right? So the framework is hugely helpful.
Yes, exactly. And then they're taking it away from them, literally taking it away from them. So now you're staying top of mind. So we created a workbook, little kind of worksheets for them that are stapled together. And if you're watching the video, which you can see on the podcast episode page, you can see I'm holding up the workbook here. So it has kind of the title of the workshop. It has a QR code for them to take our speaker archetype quiz. You can have a QR code to wherever you want to. Has a page about us, and then it has the different worksheet pages. So for example, we have like the brand voice canvas here. So again, we're having them take a few minutes to fill this out, but now they're taking it with them. Yes. So they have all of this branded by Speaking Your Brand that they're going to keep with them because it's valuable content for them. We also have, here's the bingo card. If you come back to the video, you can see that. A lot of fun. So yeah, so having your own frameworks, which is one of the things we also do in the Thought Leader Academy during that VIP day that we do with you one-on-one, is that we're mapping out your talk based on your content and your ideas. And we're also helping you to develop your own unique framework, your intellectual property, if you don't already have one. So that's a lot of fun as well.
I also think that the frameworks sort of elevate the content, meaning like if you go to a talk about any topic and they just talk, even if they have stories and engagement and all that, that's great. But if you go somewhere and there's a framework, it feels like, oh, they put a lot of thought into this, right? It feels more elevated. So now you are seen as more of a thought leader, as more of a professional in the space that you're working in. So it's a great way to not only, like Carol said, brand, your company and the work that you do, but also you as the person up there who's the go-to for this topic.
Excellent point. I completely agree because so often we see speakers and workshop facilitators who use other people's content in
Hmm.
their workshop. And it's fine to have, to take one or two things, obviously give credit to whomever you're taking it
Hmm.
from, but you really need to create your
Yes.
own stuff because that's what's going to help you stand out. And to your point, then the audience is like, oh, well, if she can create this incredible framework and
Hmm.
she obviously has put a lot of time and energy into this, then clearly she knows what she's talking about and she would be a
Yes.
great person to work
Yes.
with. All right. So frameworks are a must. The other thing, and this is where you may be surprised with workshops,
Mhm.
personal stories. And we talk about storytelling a lot on this podcast. And if you're doing a keynote or a TEDx talk, stories are front and center. And you may think, well, but workshops are about the work. They're about learning, they're about training, they're about the activities. I don't need personal stories. But yes, you do need personal stories.
Yes.
Because that's what people remember. And that's how you connect with your
Mhm.
audience. And we shared some personal stories in that workshop. And it also helps the women to open up. So, Diane, how did you feel, after we shared some personal stories? What was the kind of the vibe in the room?
I think they felt more connected to us. So here comes a group of 50 women, right? They all sit down at the tables and it's us standing at the front and them at the tables, right? So you feel a little bit disconnected at the start. And then we start talking and going through different exercises, but then the personal stories come in, then they feel permission to open up about their personal stories because we did at some points ask for audience members to share. Well, now we've shared, right? We've opened up, we've been vulnerable, we've shared. They're more willing to share, which is going to embed and solidify what they're learning even more because now they're applying it to their own personal stories. And
Yes.
other women then in the audience get to hear that, and then that models it for them. And so it sort of becomes this, it sounds sort of silly, but it's like this kumbaya moment, right? It's like, because we're all sort of in this together and we're all supporting one another. But that is what stories do. That's what personal stories do.
Yes. And you as the workshop facilitator or the speaker, you have to role model
Yes.
that vulnerability. You have to role model that storytelling if you want the workshop attendees to do the same because you can't expect them to do it. I mean, some will, but if you don't do it first, then they may be more reluctant to do so. So
Yes.
that's the kind of the first thing when you think about your workshop design is the content. So make sure that you have that clear through line based on your topic. Maybe making sure you're wrapping your information and your content and your activities under like 3 key lessons or kind of the bigger picture. Have some of your own unique frameworks that you're presenting to the audience and having them work on. And make sure you are also telling a few personal stories along the way. So that's the content piece. The next piece is the facilitation. Now, obviously, you want to make it fun and energetic, especially if they're there for 90 minutes or a half a day or a full day. So we varied the activities. Some of them, they would spend a few minutes working quietly by themselves and writing things down on the worksheet.
Mhm.
Sometimes they would talk to the person next to them or to all the women who were at their table. And then we also had a few of the women get up and share in front of the entire audience what they had worked on, say for their brand voice canvas or some of the goals that they had. So it was a good idea to vary the activities. The other thing that we like to do at our workshops, which we are always 100% committed to, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, was a dance party. So about
Yes.
halfway through the 90 minutes, we knew we wanted to kind of make sure to bring up the energy in the room. We've been sitting for a while. We wanted
Mhm.
the women to get up and move around. And what happened, Diane?
We were the only ones dancing. It was just you and me. That's all. So it was really a show, not a party.
Oh, we tried so hard. We really
Yeah,
did.
I think part of it was, and this is maybe a good lesson, is consider the audience and where they're coming from and time of day and everything. So these women, professional women, most of whom were in professional dress with high heels. So maybe that factored in somehow into them not really wanting to get up and dance, right? So who knows? And every group has its own dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. But we did our best. But regardless,
Yes.
at least we had some music. At least we
Yeah.
danced along, and it was probably memorable to them to see us just moving around, right?
Yes, and I will say we did add in fun memes, and the meme that we
Yes.
used for the dance party was Elaine from Seinfeld and her terrible
Yes.
dancing. It's something about thumbs. If you look it up, you'll know what I'm talking about, or if you're a fan. And I think even though they didn't want to dance, that was funny. And they loved that because everybody identified with it.
Well, yes. And that's a great point about humor. That's the other thing with workshops and any presentation that you do, keynote, conference presentation, workshop, is make sure that you have intentionally put humor in, whether it's funny video clips, funny memes, things like that, because you need to lighten the mood and you need to make sure that people are having a good time and laughing. And it's not just all serious work that you're doing.
Especially if your dance party doesn't work, then you
yes,
really
exactly. All right, so that was number 2, facilitation. Make it fun, make it energetic. Your audience is going to take the lead from you, and if you're not into the topic, if you're not passionate and enthusiastic about the topic, they're not going to be either. So make sure you're presenting on a topic that you really enjoy talking about. So that was number 2, facilitation. Number 3 now is the lead generation piece. So the first thing is to think about what type of offer makes the most sense for this particular audience that you're doing this workshop for. It could be your primary offer. So our signature program is our Thought Leader Academy. That's what most of our clients go through when they work with us. But we knew for this particular audience, who are mostly professional women, the Thought Leader Academy was probably not the next step for them after having just gotten to know us for the first time. And they may not even necessarily be speakers or maybe thinking about speaking, like they're maybe on much earlier in the process. And it just so happened that 6 weeks from that date that we were doing this workshop, we were holding an in-person speaking workshop in Orlando. So very similar location. All these women were obviously local. They lived in Orlando who were coming to this free workshop that we were doing here for the ATHENA NextGen. So we figured this would be a good offer for them because it would be a way for it to get to know us. It was a lower price point than the Thought Leader Academy, and they were already local. So that's why we wanted to make sure that that was the offer that we made to them. So the way that we did this is throughout the workshop content, we made sure that we planted sales seeds. So we had client success stories that we shared, some of the women that we worked with and what brought them to us and how they've been successful. And so that's a great way to do that. It doesn't come off as salesy at all. It really comes off as an inspirational and aspirational point that you're making. We would drop things in, like in our Thought Leader Academy, we work with our clients to do XYZ. It's literally one sentence. It's again, not a sales pitch, but you're letting the audience know the type of work that you do and who you work with. And so we planted those sales seeds along the way. And then here's what we did at the very end. And I want you to do this at any in-person workshop or in-person presentation that you do, which is to have a feedback form. And again, if you're looking at the video, you can see me holding up the feedback form. So the feedback form we attach to the rest of the worksheet pages as staple, but then at the end we have them separated, rip it off, and then they fill in their name, their email address, what their number one takeaway was, what they most enjoyed about the workshop, and then say like whatever their next step is or something like that. So that's great because now you're getting testimonials that you can use from that workshop or that presentation that you just gave. So that's the first part. But the second part of the feedback form, this is what makes it literally gold, is at the bottom, there are check boxes. And these check boxes are things like, I'd like to schedule a consultation call to learn about working with Speaking Your Brand. Or I'd like to hire or refer Carol or Diane to speak at another event or organization. So now you're collecting leads right here. And then the third checkbox, I always do the last checkbox, is please send me the PDF version of the workbook or the slides and add me to your email list. So something that's free, like some type of lead magnet or opt-in, because that way they're at least checking that one off and then gives them more incentive to fill out the form and turn it back in because they're at least checking that one off. But in the feedback form, you'll generally get at least a 50% return rate of them, oftentimes a lot higher than that. And then you'll get the check boxes because the reason we have people do this is that a lot of times we'll hear, well, can't they just fill out the survey online? Like Talkadot is a well-known one. And yes, you can still do that and collect stuff online for sure. Or I have the QR code on the worksheet or on my slide. Can't they just click the QR code and go to the website or whatever? Yes, they could. But here's what happens. They love what they heard at the workshop or at the conference. And then they go back to the office, or they travel back from the conference, or they go back to their laptop. And what happens, Diane?
never hear from them again. Right?
Right?
Because we all have good intentions and then we get busy, something else comes up and then we forget about it.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that you are in control of who your leads are, and then you can reach out to them. So that way, after you get all the feedback forms collected, then you go and you send them a nice thank you. If they wanted to opt in, you send that to them. And then if they wanted to schedule a consult call, send them your account, your scheduling link or dates and so on. So now you can follow up with them. And so that they don't have to worry about doing it themselves. But now here's the other thing that we did is on the back of that feedback form, we also had a form where they could register for that in-person speaking workshop we were doing 6 weeks from them. And we gave them an extra discount, an incentive, a fast action bonus, so to speak, if they signed up that same day. So that same day, they had to register for the in-speaking workshop, the in-person speaking workshop, because again, we knew they may have good intentions of wanting to go, and the same thing happens. They get back, they forget about it, they delay. I'm such a big believer in taking action and making decisions quickly, because otherwise decisions just hang over your head. And then you wonder, should I do it? Should I not do it? And honestly, I want to take that decision fatigue away from you. So the right way I do that is by giving you this extra incentive for them to just go ahead and sign up that day. And it worked. So we had 2 women from that workshop who signed up right away. A few of the other women, and this was the challenge with women who work for other companies, is that they needed to get approval from their supervisor or their supervisor in order to have the company pay for it, which we hadn't really anticipated because we don't work with a lot of women like that. So that didn't quite work out, but that's okay, because maybe they can do a future workshop that we're offering. So that was great. And so mission accomplished. We got clients from this. We also got leads for other organizations who wanted to do similar training than what we did. So now we have leads for paid trainings for other companies who were there. So go ahead.
Carol, I love the way we structured that. We do a workshop and then the offer is a workshop, because they saw what action and learnings and takeaways sort of blew them away from that workshop that we gave at Athena. And then now they're going to come to a paid workshop. So imagine what that's going to be like, right? So we it's sort of a no risk situation for them, right? Because we've already proven to them in their minds that we can deliver, right? So them purchasing to come to a workshop feels like no risk.
That's excellent point, right? The offer was very much aligned with literally what they were experiencing that morning with us. And so here's some of the feedback that we got on those feedback forms, as well as on LinkedIn posts that women shared afterwards. So one woman said, today's workshop was phenomenal. I feel like I leveled up so much today. I can only imagine the magic that happens with a full day with you all. Right? And she signed up for that full day with us. Another woman said it was an outstanding program. This workshop was my first, definitely not my last. Thank you for the inspiration and knowledge shared. I'm feeling energized and ready to become a thoughtful storyteller. Right. Another woman said, I really love the energy of your workshop, because it didn't feel like a workshop, but more like an inspirational conversation. Nice.
That's what we want.
That's what we love to hear, because thinking about these overall takeaways for you, if you're doing any type of presentation, including workshops, focus on the transformation you want the audience to have, not just a bunch of information for them to try to consume and do something with. Think about that bigger transformation you want for them, and then walk them through that. The energy comes from you as a facilitator. Try the funny video clips, try the dance parties, right? See what happens. The worst that happens is you're dancing by yourself. Oh, well, I mean, right?
At least that's fun still. Yeah.
Right. At least you're getting your energy up.
Yes.
Share your own personal stories, even in workshops. They still make a big difference. And of course, incorporate fun and humor with what you are doing. So it was a great experience, Diane. Thank you so much for co-facilitating that with me. And I'm looking forward to doing many more of those.
Yes, that was so fun. I love a group of women like that, because the energy in the room was amazing.
It was. And we still hear from them of how much they enjoyed it. So If you would like to discover your speaker archetype, one of our speaker archetypes is called the Fabulous Facilitator. We know you are out there. You love doing workshops more so than you like, say, speaking on a stage. You're really not too keen maybe on doing a keynote type of talk, but you really love doing workshops, which is great. Take our speaker archetype quiz because you're going to get recommendations for how to amplify what you're already great at, but then also how you can add to it to do some things that maybe you're not already doing so that you can wow your audience even more. That's an entirely free quiz. 10 multiple choice questions. Just take a few minutes to get it, and then you'll get your results right away. You can take that quiz at speakingyourbrand.com/quiz. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/quiz. Diane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Carol.
Until next time, thanks for listening.